200 hours, South China Sea, 100 miles east of the Paracel Islands. The ocean floor is a void of crushing blackness. Above, a tropical storm rages, churning the surface into white-capped peaks that mask the movements below. Down here, the silence is heavy and absolute. The American attack submarine glides through the abyss like a predatory shark. Its propeller turns slowly, cutting the water with barely a whisper. Inside the control room, red emergency lights bathe the crew in a crimson glow. Men speak in hushed tones, checking sonar screens that wash green light over their faces. The air is recycled, cool, and sterile. The sonar operator freezes. He presses his headphones tighter against his ears. A faint rhythmic thumping breaks the silence. He signals the captain. On the screen, 3 distinct signatures emerge from the digital noise. A massive Chinese logistics ship moves fast through the storm, escorted by 2 frigates. The convoy carries the fuel and ammunition needed to sustain the island bases. The captain nods. The order is given. Torpedo tubes flood with a hollow groan. Tube 1, fire. Compressed air hisses violently. The submarine shudders as the heavy weapon ejects. Tube 2, fire. Another jolt. The wire-guided torpedoes accelerate, their propellers spinning up to a high-pitched whine that cuts through the water. On the surface, rain lashes the steel deck of the logistics ship. Lookouts squint into the dark, blinding storm, fighting the wind that tears at their ponchos. Suddenly, a white trail of bubbles streaks toward the hull. There is no time to turn. The alarm klaxon begins to scream, but it is too late. The first torpedo slams into the starboard side, amidships. The explosion rips the ship open. A massive fireball erupts, boiling the ocean and sending a geyser of water and twisted metal 300 feet into the air. The shockwave smashes the bridge windows, showering the crew with razor-sharp glass. The hull buckles under the force. Steel plates scream as they are torn apart. The ship's spine snaps. The bow lifts out of the water, groaning under the stress before crashing back down. Inside the hold, ammunition crates tumble and smash. Secondary explosions detonate deep within the vessel. The deck plates grow hot. Sailors are thrown across the passageways like ragdolls. Black smoke pours from the ventilation shafts, choking the corridors. Fuel tanks rupture, spewing thousands of gallons of diesel into the sea. The oil ignites. The waves turn into a rolling carpet of fire. The escorting frigate turns sharply to port, its sonar pinging wildly in the chaos. The captain on the bridge barks orders into the handset. The ship heels over, cutting through the swell. It fires a spread of anti-submarine rockets. The projectiles arc through the rain and splash into the water. Seconds later, underwater explosions hammer the sea. Below, the shockwaves slam against the American submarine's hull. The steel frame groans. Pipes rattle violently. Dust falls from the ceiling grids. The crew grabs onto railings to steady themselves. The captain orders a steep dive. The submarine angles down, sliding deeper into the safety of the thermal layer. The second torpedo ignores the burning transport and locks onto the turning frigate. It strikes the stern. The explosion shreds the propeller and blows the rudder clean off. The frigate shudders violently, losing all forward momentum. Water rushes into the engine room, drowning the turbines in a torrent of brine. Steam pipes burst, spraying scalding vapor. The ship lists heavily, dead in the water, drifting toward the burning oil slick of the convoy it failed to protect. The American captain orders a decoy deployment. A noisy countermeasure shoots out from the sub, mimicking the sound of the engine. The remaining enemy destroyer chases the ghost signal, firing depth charges into empty water miles away. The submarine runs silent, slipping away into the deep. On the surface, the logistics ship is gone. Only debris and empty life rafts bob in the burning oil. The crippled frigate burns, casting an orange glow against the black storm clouds. The supply line is severed. 0530 hours, flight deck of a U.S. aircraft carrier, Philippine Sea. The horizon is a bruised purple as the sun threatens to breach the waterline. Steam curls off the catapult tracks, mixing with the sharp scent of jet fuel. Yellow-shirted handlers motion furiously with light wands. The engines of the lead fighter jet scream, a high-pitched whine that vibrates in the chest cavities of the deck crew. The pilot checks his display. The canopy closes. The shuttle locks into the nose gear. Tension is a tight wire. The shooter drops his hand. The catapult fires. The jet hurls forward, accelerating from 0 to 160 knots in 2 seconds. Gravity slams the pilot back into the seat. He clears the deck, banking hard left, afterburners painting streaks of blue fire against the dawn. 10,000 feet above the Spratly Islands, the radar warning receiver screams. 4 hostile fighter jets drop from the cloud cover. They dive fast, intent on ambushing the patrol. The U.S. flight leader reacts instantly. He arms the long-range missiles. Fox 3. 2 missiles drop from the wings. Their motors ignite with a blinding flash. They streak away, leaving trails of white smoke that scar the morning sky. The lead enemy fighter tries to roll. It is too slow. The missile detonates proximity fuses 10 feet from the cockpit. Shrapnel shreds the fuselage. The canopy shatters. The jet dissolves into a cloud of orange fire and aluminum confetti. The second enemy pilot pulls a high G-turn, dumping flares that burn like magnesium stars. He dives for the deck, trying to break the radar lock. The US pilot follows, inverting his aircraft. Blood rushes to his head. He fights the G-force. The airframe groans under the stress. Vapor cones form over the wings as the jet breaks the sound barrier. The enemy pulls up, exposing his belly. The US pilot switches to heat seekers. The tone locks. A solid, high-pitched whine fills the helmet. He squeezes the trigger. The missile tears off the rail. It slams into the enemy's right engine exhaust. The explosion shears the tail section clean off. The enemy jet enters a violent flat spin, tumbling uncontrollably toward the ocean. It impacts the water at 600 miles per hour. A massive geyser of white water erupts. Splash 2, push the zone, the flight leader barks over the radio. He checks his fuel gauge. He banks the aircraft north, scanning for more contacts. The remaining 2 enemy jets dump their ordnance into the sea and turn tail. They flee back toward the mainland air defenses, their formation broken. The sky over the islands clears. Far on the southern horizon, the heavy, dark shapes of the bomber fleet appear. They fly in perfect formation unopposed. 700 hours, artificial island base, Spratly Archipelago. The morning sun bakes the white concrete seawalls. Heat waves shimmer off the runway tarmac. Seagulls circle overhead, their cries the only sound over the gentle lap of waves against man-made tetrapods. Inside the pillbox bunkers, defenders crouch low, eyes fixed on the horizon. The air smells of wet cement and nervous sweat. A low rumble begins in the distance, vibrating the water in the lagoon. The horizon line thickens. It transforms into a wall of gray steel. The landing force has arrived. The first shell from the offshore destroyers screams overhead. It impacts the runway control tower. Concrete explodes. The tower shears in half, toppling onto the tarmac in a cloud of dust and twisted rebar. The barrage intensifies. Explosions walk up the beach, throwing sand and water 50 feet into the air. Huge hovercrafts drift sideways onto the sand, their skirts deflating with a loud hiss. The heavy steel ramps slam down. Marines pour out into the waist-deep water. Machine gun fire erupts from the bunker line. It tears through the air. Bullets zip past ears and splash violently into the surf. A Marine takes a round to the shoulder. The impact spins him around. He falls face first into the water. Red blooms in the white foam. A medic grabs his drag handle and heaves him behind the cover of a tank trap. An amphibious fighting vehicle roars off the second hovercraft. Its tracks churn the wet sand, gripping for traction. The turret spins. The cannon fires. The shell slams into the firing slit of the lead bunker. The explosion blows the concrete roof off. Dust and smoke billow out. The enemy gun goes silent. "Suppressing fire! Move right!" the platoon commander yells, pointing his assault rifle toward the seawall. A squad of Marines sprints across the open beach. Sand kicks up around their boots as enemy bullets chew up the ground. They dive against the concrete wall. One soldier pulls the pin on a fragmentation grenade. He hurls it over the wall. Crack. The explosion screams inside the trench. Screams follow. The Marines vault the wall. They land in the trench, weapons raised. Close quarters chaos ensues. A defender rounds the corner. The point man fires 2 rounds. The defender drops. Another Marine shoulders a rocket launcher. He aims at the reinforced steel doors of the main hangar. The rocket leaves the tube with a whoosh. It strikes the center of the door. The metal buckles and tears open. Fire engulfs the entrance. The amphibious vehicles push past the beachhead, crushing barbed wire under their treads. They roll onto the runway, firing coaxial machine guns at fleeing defenders. The beach is a ruin of craters and burning debris. Bodies lay scattered across the sand. The air is thick with black smoke that blots out the sun. The radio operator keys his handset. Beachhead secure, armor moving inland. 0830 hours, subterranean command level, 40 feet beneath the airfield. The air is stale, recycled, and cold. Emergency strobes pulse rhythmically, washing the reinforced concrete corridor in harsh, intermittent white flashes. Dust trickles from the ceiling grids with every muffled thud of the artillery pounding the surface above. A puddle of leaking hydraulic fluid reflects the black boots of the Special Operations team. They stand motionless against the rough wall, stacked tight. The team leader raises a gloved hand. He checks the digital timer on the breaching charge adhered to the blast door. He closes his fist. He presses the detonator. The blast door disintegrates. The explosion sucks the air out of the hallway in a violent vacuum. A concussive shockwave punches through the smoke, rattling teeth and bones. The point man surges forward before the debris settles. He steps over the twisted, smoking metal of the doorframe. His weapon is raised. The laser sight cuts through the haze. Inside the server antechamber, enemy technicians scramble. One reaches for a pistol on a desk. The point man fires. 2 shots. The technician falls back into a server rack. Sparks shower down, fizzing on the concrete floor. Clear left! Clear right! The team moves with mechanical precision. They flow around obstacles. A heavy machine gun opens up from a fortified position at the end of the main corridor. Bullets chip chunks of concrete off the walls, sending razor-sharp grit flying into the air. The sound is deafening in the confined space. The team dives for cover behind concrete pillars. Bullets chew up the floor, walking closer to their position. The team leader signals the grenadier. The soldier leans out. He fires a 40mm round from his underslung launcher. The grenade sails down the hallway. It impacts the sandbags surrounding the machine gun nest. The explosion creates a pressurized wave of fire and dust. The gunner is thrown backward, slamming against the rear wall. The heavy weapon falls silent. The team advances. They sprint over the debris, boots crunching on glass and spent brass. They reach the central control room. The heavy steel door is magnetically locked. A breacher slaps a linear cutting charge on the hinges. The magnesium burns white hot, hissing violently as it slices through the solid steel like butter. Smoke fills the air. The door groans and falls inward with a heavy metallic clang. The operators flood the room. Inside, officers are frantically shredding documents and smashing hard drives. They look up. The lead officer draws a weapon. The team leader drops him with a single shot to the chest armor plate. The force knocks the officer down. He gasps for air. The rest of the staff raise their hands. The team moves in. Zip ties cinch tight around wrists. The demolition expert rushes to the main missile control console. He rips the front panel loose. Wires and circuit boards spill out. He places a thermite grenade inside the casing. He pulls the pin. Fire in the hole. The grenade ignites. Molten iron burns at 4,000 degrees. It pours over the delicate electronics, melting through the motherboard and the steel floor beneath it. The wall of tactical screens flickers and dies. The red targeting lights extinguish. The team leader keys his radio. The connection crackles. Target neutralized. The batteries are blind. Above them, the ceiling shakes violently as another heavy bomb strikes the runway. 1,000 hours, U.S. Carrier Strike Group, Philippine Sea. The sun beats down on the gray steel of the aircraft carrier. Heat waves distort the horizon, blurring the line where the blue sky meets the darker ocean. On the bridge, officers stand rigid around the digital tactical table. Radar dishes on the superstructure spin with a hypnotic, steady rhythm. The hum of the ship's nuclear reactor acts as a constant vibrating pulse beneath the deck plates. A deceptive calm holds the fleet in its grip. A lookout on the starboard wing raises his binoculars. He freezes. The horizon is shimmering, but not from heat. A low buzzing sound begins to build. It grows louder, sounding like a plague of locusts descending on a crop. The radar screen suddenly floods with hundreds of red contacts. The system lags, struggling to count them. It is not a missile, it is a swarm. The air defense alarm screams. Inbound, multiple contacts. The sky darkens with small delta-wing suicide drones. They dive in a chaotic, shifting cloud, moving like a school of fish. The destroyer escorts react instantly. 5-inch deck guns boom, shaking the water. The sky fills with black flak puffs. The drones weave through the explosions, closing the distance at 200 miles per hour. Rolling airframe missiles launch from the carrier's sponsons. They spiral out, trailing white smoke. They slam into the center of the drone cloud. Fireballs pop like firecrackers in the sky. Debris rains down into the water. But the gap in the swarm closes instantly. There are too many targets. The phalanx rotary cannons spin up. The barrels blur into a gray mist. A stream of tungsten rounds tears through the air with a sound like ripping canvas. A deafening, continuous roar. Brrrt! A line of drones disintegrates, shredded into plastic shards and twisted wire. Tracers stitch the sky. One drone breaks through the wall of lead. It dives steep. It slams into the flight deck of the carrier, right between 2 parked fighter jets. The warhead detonates. A fireball engulfs the aircraft. Burning fuel sprays across the non-skid surface. The shockwave knocks 3 deck crewmen off their feet. They slide across the deck, tumbling toward the edge. Another drone strikes the side of a frigate. It hits the superstructure. Steel rips open. Glass shatters on the bridge. Shrapnel sprays the interior, cutting down a signalman. Jamming! Activate full spectrum! The electronic warfare officer yells, slamming his fist onto a console. The ship's massive emitters blast invisible waves of high-frequency energy. The approaching drones wobble. Their control links sever. The swarm loses its collective mind. The drones veer wildly off course. They dive nose first into the ocean. Dozens of splashes erupt around the fleet as the machines crash harmlessly into the waves. Fire crews on the flight deck rush forward, silver suits reflecting the flames. Foam cannons blast the burning wreckage. The buzzing fades. The sky clears, leaving only the black smoke rising from the scorched deck. 23:45 hours, Taiwan Strait. The narrow channel is a churning cauldron of black water. Rain squalls sweep across the deck of the lead U.S. guided missile destroyer, reducing visibility to zero. The ship cuts through 10-foot swells, the bow smashing down into the troughs with a bone-jarring rhythmic crash. On the bridge, the crew stands in the crimson wash of combat lighting. The silence is heavy, broken only by the hum of cooling fans and the groaning of steel under stress. The tactical officer freezes. A high-pitched tone pierces the quiet. The radar screen blooms with a solid contact. Vampire inbound bearing 300. The horizon flashes white. 3 supersonic anti-ship missiles streak from the darkness, skimming the wave tops. Their rocket motors burn like angry stars. The U.S. captain grips the railing. All engines ahead full. Deploy chaff. The destroyer surges forward, turbines whining as they spool to maximum power. Canisters launch from the superstructure. They burst in the air, creating a cloud of aluminum foil strips to confuse the enemy sensors. The ship heels hard to starboard, burying its rail in the foaming sea. The first enemy missile takes the bait. It flies harmlessly into the chaff cloud and detonates, showering the water with useless shrapnel. The second missile locks onto the ship. Auto-engage, birds away! The vertical launch cells on the foredeck blow open. Flame erupts. 2 interceptor missiles shoot upward, trailing thick columns of smoke. They arc over the ship and dive. They collide with the incoming threat 2 miles out. The sky splits open with a blinding flash. The shockwave ripples the ocean surface. The third enemy missile slips through. It slams into the water 50 yards off the port bow. The warhead detonates underwater. A massive geyser of water lifts the front of the destroyer. The ship shudders violently. Inside, sailors are thrown against bulkheads. Lights flicker and die, replaced instantly by emergency strobes. "Fire main batteries! Target the cruiser!" the captain roars. The 5-inch deck gun spins. It fires. The report is deafening. The empty brass casing clatters onto the steel deck. The gun fires again and again. 3 miles away, the Chinese heavy cruiser is illuminated by the muzzle flashes. The U.S. shells smash into its superstructure. The radar mast shears off, tumbling into the sea. Another shell penetrates the hull near the waterline. Armor plates buckle and scream. The U.S. destroyer launches its own anti-ship missiles. The weapons roar out of the tubes. They fly low. They strike the enemy cruiser amidships. The explosion is catastrophic. It punches a hole the size of a bus into the cruiser's side. The magazine catches fire. A secondary detonation rips the vessel in half. The sound is a guttural, terrifying roar that drowns out the storm. The bow of the enemy ship lifts vertical, hanging suspended for a moment against the lightning-streaked sky. Then, it slides backward into the crushing depths. The ocean churns with debris. Burning oil spreads across the black swells. The U.S. destroyer slows, its hull smoking but intact, steaming past the grave of its adversary. 4:30 hours, coastal inlets, western Philippines. Thick fog clings to the surface of the brackish water. Twisted mangrove roots rise from the mud like skeletal fingers. The air is heavy with humidity and the smell of decaying vegetation. Deep within the winding channels, 3 Chinese fast-attack missile boats sit motionless. Camouflage netting drapes over their sharp, angular hulls, blending them into the dense foliage. Sailors speak in whispers, swatting at mosquitoes. The water laps gently against the aluminum sides. It is a perfect hiding spot. A low vibration begins to shake the leaves. Ripples form on the still water. The sound grows into a rhythmic, chopping thrum that beats against the chest. The lead Chinese officer looks up. The fog swirls violently. 2 U.S. attack helicopters rise suddenly above the tree line. Their dark silhouettes blot out the gray sky. They hover like giant predatory wasps. The nose-mounted sensor turrets swivel, their glass eyes glowing faintly. "Contact front, engage," the lead pilot says. A guided missile drops from the helicopter's stub wing. The rocket motor ignites with a blinding flash. It covers the distance in seconds. It slams into the bridge of the center missile boat. The explosion is absolute. The aluminum hull disintegrates. A fireball expands outward, vaporizing the water around the vessel. Burning metal rains down into the mangroves. The shockwave strips the leaves off the nearby trees. The remaining 2 boats panic. Engines scream to life. They reverse hard, churning the mud into a brown slurry. They turn, trying to flee toward the open sea. The wake throws white foam onto the muddy banks. The second attack helicopter tilts its nose down. The pilot aligns the helmet-mounted sight. The 30mm chain gun under the nose spins up. Thump, 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 thump. The sound is slow, heavy, and rhythmic. High explosive rounds impact the water, walking a line of destruction toward the fleeing boat on the left. The shells strike the stern. The engine cover rips open. Smoke pours out. The rounds stitch up the length of the deck, tearing through the radar mast and the missile launchers. The boat loses power. It drifts aimlessly into a mudbank. A sailor jumps overboard, splashing desperately toward the roots. The third boat breaks into the open bay, throttle wide open. It bounces violently over the waves, trying to outrun the rotary wing hunters. The rear defense gun fires wildly into the air, tracers streaking harmlessly into the clouds. The lead helicopter banks hard, cutting the corner. It accelerates, flying low over the water. The pilot switches to rockets. A pod on the wing erupts. Dozens of unguided rockets streak forward. They saturate the water around the fleeing vessel. 3 rockets strike the waterline. The hull buckles. The boat cartwheels, flipping into the air amidst a massive spray of water and fire. It lands upside down, crushing the superstructure. Fuel spills and ignites, creating a ring of fire on the surface. The helicopters circle once. The thermal sensors scan the burning wreckage. There is no return fire. The Mosquito fleet is erased. 1400 hours, Luzon Strait. The sun beats down on the leaden gray water. A convoy of massive U.S. cargo ships moves in a slow, agonizing single-file line. They sit low in the water, bellies heavy with tanks, ammunition, and medical supplies. Ahead of them, small wooden-hulled minesweepers bob violently in the chop, their acoustic arrays trailing behind like tails. The air is thick with diesel fumes and salt spray. On the bridge of the lead transport, the crew watches the sea with binoculars. Every floating piece of trash looks like death. The silence is broken only by the drone of heavy engines fighting the current. Contact. Mine tethered 300 yards dead ahead, the radio crackles. A remote-controlled submersible drops from the stern of a minesweeper. It buzzes underwater, camera feed flickering. It attaches a charge to the mine's anchor chain. The minesweeper accelerates away. Boom! A pillar of water shoots vertical. The shockwave slaps the hull of the nearby frigate. The ocean surface boils white. Then a distant whistle cuts through the humid air. It starts low and rises to a shriek. Incoming! Brace! The first artillery shell slams into the water 50 yards off the port beam of the fuel tanker. The explosion sends a wall of water crashing over the deck. Steel containers groan as the ship rolls heavily. More shells rain down. The coastal batteries on the distant island have the range. A shell strikes the deck of the third cargo ship. It hits a stack of shipping containers, metal shears. The containers burst open. Supplies, crates of rations, spare tires, uniforms vomit into the air. One container tumbles over the side, splashing into the sea. The escorting frigates heel hard to starboard. Their main guns swivel toward the island profile on the horizon. Crack, crack, crack. The 57-meter guns fire in rapid succession. The casings eject onto the deck, chiming like bells. The rounds fly flat and fast. They impact the rocky cliffs miles away. Dust and smoke puff out from the enemy artillery positions. A sailor on the fuel tanker screams. Shrapnel from a near miss has sliced through a fuel line on the deck. Jet fuel sprays across the hot steel piping. It ignites. A sheet of fire races toward the superstructure. Damage control, foam team, go! Sailors in heavy protective gear rush into the inferno. Foam cannons blast white chemical sludge onto the fire. The flames hiss and fight back, licking at the bridge windows. The ship shudders as another shell lands close, rattling the teeth of every man on board. The lead minesweeper cuts the cable of another mine. It floats to the surface, bobbing black and ominous. The frigate's heavy machine gunner spots it. He depresses the butterfly trigger. The 50 caliber rounds chew up the water. One strikes the mine casing. The explosion is massive. It lifts the bow of the minesweeper out of the water. The small ship crashes back down, timbers cracking. But the path is clear. Full ahead, punch through the smoke, the convoy commander orders. The massive engines of the cargo ships roar. The propellers churn the water into a frenzy. They surge forward, passing through the curtain of falling artillery shells and burning oil. They leave the kill zone behind. 600 hours, the last fortress, deep within the 9-dash line. The sun rises over a scene of absolute encirclement. The horizon, usually a clean line of blue, is broken by the gray silhouettes of the American Armada. Dozens of destroyers, cruisers, and the massive flat-top shape of an aircraft carrier sit motionless on the water. The sea is calm, glass-like, reflecting the steel ring that tightens around the artificial island. On the base, the air sirens have burned out from overuse. Smoke from previous skirmishes still drifts lazily from a cratered fuel depot. Inside the main citadel, defenders look at the monitors. There is nowhere left to run. The silence hangs over the ocean like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. The radio on the Chinese command frequency crackles. "Surrender immediately. This is your final warning." There is no response. On the lead U.S. cruiser, the admiral nods once. "Clear the grid, batteries release." The ocean erupts. Hundreds of vertical launch cells blow open simultaneously across the fleet. The sound is a collective, earth-shaking roar that displaces the air for miles. Cruise missiles shoot upward on pillars of fire. They arc over the fleet, tipping over at the apex of their flight, and accelerate toward the island. They look like a swarm of angry hornets descending on a hive. The first wave strikes the airfield. Warheads detonate with surgical precision. The runway craters, slabs of concrete flipping into the air like playing cards. A parked transport plane is vaporized in a flash of white heat. Its wings shear off and cartwheel across the tarmac, spewing burning fuel. Then, the naval guns speak. The 5-inch cannons on the destroyers fire in a rhythmic, rolling barrage. The shells scream through the air. They impact the hardened bunkers along the shoreline. Sand and reinforced concrete explode outward. The ground shakes violently, knocking defenders off their feet. A watchtower takes a direct hit. The steel support legs buckle. The structure groans, leans, and collapses into the lagoon with a massive splash. High above, heavy bombers open their bay doors. Gravity bombs whistle as they fall. They strike the ammunition tunnels deep underground. The earth heaves. A massive secondary explosion rips through the surface, venting fire and black smoke through the ventilation shafts. The shockwave shatters the windows of the Central Command building. Inside the command center, the ceiling collapses. Debris rains down on the tactical maps. Officers dive under tables. The lights die, plunging the room into darkness, illuminated only by the sparks of dying electronics and the red glow of emergency flares. A general stumbles, coughing in the thick dust. He grabs the railing to steady himself as another tremor rocks the foundation. Blood trickles from his ear, shattered by the overpressure. The bombardment stops as quickly as it started. The sudden silence is louder than the explosions. The island is a ruin. Fires burn uncontrolled in every sector. The radar arrays are twisted metal sculptures. The anti-air batteries are smoking craters. A U.S. helicopter flies low over the burning citadel. A loudspeaker booms, echoing off the broken concrete. "Lay down your weapons, walk to the beach, hands in the air." Slowly, a door to a surviving bunker creaks open. A single soldier steps out. He drops his rifle into the dust. He raises his hands, then another, and another. They emerge from the smoke like ghosts, walking toward the shoreline where the landing craft are already approaching. 1200 hours, open ocean, northern edge of the Spratly Islands. The noon sun glares off the oil-slicked water. Black smoke rises in thick vertical columns from the horizon, marking the graves of sunken vessels. The roar of combat has faded, replaced by the heavy rhythmic thrum of diesel engines and the chop of rotor blades. The battle is over, the evacuation begins. A battered Chinese frigate limps northward. Its superstructure is a twisted ruin of scorched metal. The radar mast hangs off the side, dragging in the water like a broken limb. The hull is riddled with shrapnel holes. Smoke trickles from the aft deck. It moves slowly, struggling against the current. 2 U.S. destroyers flank the crippled ship. Their 5-inch guns remain trained on the vessel, tracking its movement. They cut through the waves with predatory grace, creating a wake that rocks the unstable enemy ship. On the bridge wings, U.S. sailors watch the retreat through binoculars. No one speaks. On the captured island, the scene is controlled chaos. A heavy transport helicopter touches down on the cratered runway. Dust blasts outward, coating the prisoners sitting in rows on the tarmac. Their heads are bowed. Hands are zip-tied behind their backs. Marines stand guard, weapons hanging loose but ready. Medics rush a stretcher toward the open ramp of the helicopter. A wounded sailor lies on it, bandages soaked through with red. An IV bag swings violently as the bearers run. They slide the stretcher onto the deck. The crew chief signals the pilot. The turbine screams. The helicopter lifts off, banking hard over the burning bunkers. In the surrounding water, small boats patrol the debris field. Sailors use boat hooks to pull floating life jackets and waterproof cases from the sludge. A helmet bobs in the swell. A piece of a hull plate painted with a red star floats past. The U.S. Admiral stands on the deck of the aircraft carrier. He looks at the digital map. The red zone is gone. The sea lanes are open. Station keeping, establish the new perimeter, he orders. The fleet spreads out. The gray shapes of the warships form a steel wall across the ocean. The American flag snaps in the wind on the stern of the lead cruiser. Behind them, the smoke clears, revealing the empty, open water of the South China Sea.